The bar on Concordia Station was quiet tonight. Velshara sat across from Commander Kreshtal, her recording device sitting between them on the old metal table. She had been trying to get this interview for 6 months. The Torquin veteran had refused every request until last week. Kreshtal looked older than his 50 years. His blue-gray skin had faded in places, and his 4 eyes held a tiredness that went deeper than simple age. He stared at the amber liquid in his glass, rotating it slowly with one clawed hand. "You want to know about the war?" he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Commander. The young people today, they don't understand what happened. They see humans at the marketplace, at schools, working normal jobs. They don't know what it was like." Kreshtal made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No, they don't." He drank the entire glass in one motion and signaled for another. "That's probably good. Some things shouldn't be remembered clearly." Velshara leaned forward. She was young for a journalist, barely 20 cycles old. The war had ended when she was still a child. But it should be recorded. For history. History. Kreshtal received his new drink and took a smaller sip this time. "Very well. For history. But I'm going to tell you the truth, young one. Not the clean version they teach in schools. The real truth."
"Can you handle that?"
"Yes, Commander. We'll see." He settled back in his chair, his body language becoming distant. 15 years ago, humanity made contact with the Galactic Covenant. We thought we were doing them a favor, bringing them into civilized space. We thought we understood warfare. We thought we understood combat. He paused. We were wrong about everything. Velshara's recorder captured every word as Kreshtal began his story. The first real battle was at Epsilon Ridge. Before that, there had been skirmishes, misunderstandings along the border zones, but Epsilon Ridge was where we first met human soldiers in actual combat. I was a junior commander then, leading a battalion of 300 Torquin warriors. We were good, well-trained. We had fought in 4 previous conflicts against other species. We knew what we were doing. He took another drink. The humans had fortified a mining colony there. Command wanted it for the strategic resources. Simple operation, we thought. We had superior numbers, better weapons, orbital support. The human defenders numbered maybe 100 soldiers. The math was simple. What happened? Velshara asked when he fell silent. We attacked at dawn. Standard assault pattern. Our doctrine said that when faced with overwhelming force, most species surrender or retreat to minimize casualties. That's rational. That's civilized. The humans did neither. Kreshtal's eyes became unfocused, seeing something 15 years in the past. The first thing I noticed was the noise. They made these sounds, these screams and shouts. Not fear sounds, not distress calls. They were yelling at us, challenging us. In the middle of combat, they were taunting us. I had never heard anything like it. My second-in-command, Veltoth, he said it must be some kind of psychological warfare technique. We ignored it and pressed the attack. We hit their outer defenses hard. I saw at least 20 humans go down in the first exchange. Any other species would have broken then, maybe fled to a secondary position. The humans stayed. The ones who were hit but not dead, they kept fighting. Velshara wrote notes alongside her recording. Kept fighting how? One of their soldiers took a plasma bolt to the shoulder. It burned through his armor and into the flesh beneath. I saw it happen. He went down on one knee. I thought he was finished. But he switched his weapon to his other hand and kept firing. For 10 minutes he stayed there shooting at my troops with one arm hanging useless at his side. Kreshtal's hand tightened around his glass. Another one, a human female, got hit in the leg. The blast shattered the bone. I heard it break from 30 meters away. She fell. My soldiers moved forward thinking that section was clear. She propped herself against a rock and killed 3 of my people before someone finally hit her in the chest. The medical officer said later that her pain levels should have caused unconsciousness. No Torquin, no Vrex, no Halth could have stayed awake with those injuries. But she did. She stayed in the fight. The bar around them was nearly empty now. The bartender, an old Vrex, polished glasses and pretended not to listen. But Velshara saw his ears were turned toward their conversation. We pushed forward. We had to. We had committed to the attack. But it wasn't like any battle I had been in before. The humans gave up nothing easily. Every meter of ground cost us. Every building was a fight. They used weapons we had never seen before. Simple things but effective. Explosives hidden in doorways. Chemicals that burned when exposed to air. One group of them held a warehouse for 6 hours against 40 of my soldiers. When we finally broke through their lines, I thought it was over. We had won. We controlled the colony. But then I started counting casualties. We had lost 97 soldiers against 100 humans in a battle where we had every advantage. Velshara looked up from her notes. That seems like an even trade, Commander. That's what I thought then. I told myself it was acceptable. But I was missing something important. Something my commander understood when I reported to him. He looked at the numbers and went very quiet. Then he asked me one question. How many humans surrendered? How many did? Velshara asked 0, not 1. When we counted the human casualties, we found 96 bodies. 4 were missing. We found out later they had escaped through maintenance tunnels, carrying their most seriously wounded with them. They could have surrendered. We would have treated them according to the conventions, but they chose to fight until they couldn't fight anymore, and then they ran. Kreshtal finished his second drink. My commander explained it to me then. He was older, had more experience. He said that losing 97 soldiers to kill 96 enemies was a terrible trade, because it meant the humans were willing to die at a 1-to-1 ratio, and there were billions of them. How many battles could we afford like that? But you kept fighting, Velshara said. Yes, we kept fighting, because we didn't understand yet. We thought Epsilon Ridge was an exception. Maybe those particular humans were fanatics or extremists. Maybe they had been drugged or conditioned somehow. We thought the next battle would be different. He looked directly at Velshara with all 4 eyes. We were wrong. Every battle was like that. Every single one. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't conditioning. It was just them. That's how humans fight. That's what they are. Velshara felt a chill run down her spine despite the warm air in the bar. After Epsilon Ridge, I started having dreams. Nightmares, really. I kept seeing that female soldier, the one with the shattered leg. In my dreams, she never stopped shooting. Even after we killed her, she kept coming. That's when I first started to understand what we were really facing. He gestured to the bartender for another drink. But that was just the beginning. At Epsilon Ridge, we faced regular human soldiers. Trained, yes. Determined, yes. But still regular military. We didn't know about their special forces yet. We didn't know what they called berserker rage. We didn't understand what persistence hunting meant. The bartender brought the drink. Kreshtal held it but didn't drink yet. That came later. That came when we learned what it meant to be hunted by humans. Kreshtal ordered food this time along with another drink. Velshara waited patiently while he ate. She could tell the memories were difficult for him. When he finally pushed his plate aside, he continued. You have to understand something about the Galactic Covenant. Every species in it evolved differently, but we all understood certain rules about warfare. Combat is about achieving objectives with minimal casualties. Honor matters. Surrender is acceptable when you're beaten. These aren't just cultural ideas. They're practical. They keep wars from becoming extinction events. He picked up his drink but just held it. Most Covenant species evolved as prey animals. The Torquin, the Halth, even the Vrex. We learned to avoid fights we couldn't win. The predator species in the Covenant, like the Kreth, they're ambush hunters. They strike fast and hard, then retreat if the attack fails. It's efficient. It's logical. Humans are different, Velshara said quietly. Humans are different, Kreshtal agreed. They evolved as what they call persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Velshara shook her head. It means they hunted by chasing. On their homeworld before technology, humans would pick an animal and just follow it. For hours, for days sometimes. They would chase it until it collapsed from exhaustion. They didn't need to be faster. They didn't need to be stronger. They just needed to never stop. He finally drank. That's what we faced. An entire species that doesn't stop. That doesn't know how to give up. At Epsilon Ridge, I thought their determination was unusual. After the next dozen battles, I realized it was just normal for them. Tell me about the pain, Velshara said, checking her notes. You mentioned they have a high pain tolerance. High doesn't cover it. They feel pain, but it doesn't stop them the way it stops us. I saw a human soldier take a blade through his side in close combat. It went through his armor, between his ribs, probably hit organs. He grabbed the Krith warrior who stabbed him and broke the warrior's neck with his bare hands before he collapsed. The medical scan showed his adrenaline levels were beyond what should be survivable. Kreshtal leaned forward. Their medics told us later that humans have this chemical response to stress and injury. Their bodies flood with these hormones that block pain and increase strength. In high stress, they literally become stronger and feel less pain. It's like their bodies are designed for fighting through damage. But surely they still have limits, Velshara said. Of course they do. They die like anyone else. But the limit is so much higher than ours. A wound that would make a Torquin unconscious, a human can fight through. An injury that would make a Vrek surrender, a human will ignore until the battle is over. He paused, collecting his thoughts. There was a battle at Research Station 7. We had surrounded a human medical facility. Inside were 20 human soldiers and about 30 wounded. We called for surrender. They had no chance of escape. No reinforcements were coming. The smart thing, the logical thing, was to give up. They refused. For 3 days they held that facility. When we finally broke through, we found that 6 of the defenders had died. But every single wounded soldier had been stabilized and treated. The human medics had worked around the clock, even while the facility was under fire, even knowing they would probably die. Because that's what they do. They don't leave their people behind. Velshara was writing quickly now, trying to capture everything. What happened to the survivors? We took them prisoner, followed all the conventions. But here's what scared me. Even as prisoners, even wounded and exhausted, they were cataloging everything, watching us, learning our patterns. One of them, a young medic named Chen, asked if she could treat our wounded. We said no, obviously. She might have poisoned them or done something. But she asked again the next day, and the day after that. On the 4th day, one of our soldiers was badly injured in an accident. Chen started yelling from her cell, explaining what we needed to do to save him, step-by-step instructions. She could see he was dying and she couldn't stop herself from trying to help, even though we were her enemies. Even though she was a prisoner, Kreshtal's voice became quieter. We let her treat him. Under guard, weapons pointed at her the whole time. She saved his life. Then she went back to her cell without complaint. I didn't understand that. Why help us? We asked her. She said doctors help people. That's what they do. Like it was the simplest thing in the world, he shook his head. That was when I started to realize how complicated humans were. They would fight with incredible violence, kill without hesitation when they needed to, but they also had these rigid codes about honor, about helping the wounded, about not leaving anyone behind. It wasn't logical. A logical species would surrender when beaten. A logical species wouldn't risk 20 soldiers to save 30 wounded. But humans didn't work on that kind of logic. After Station 7, I requested a transfer to intelligence. I wanted to understand them better. I read everything we had on humans. Their history, their psychology, their culture. It was terrifying. Velshara looked up. What do you mean? Humans have been fighting wars for their entire history. Thousands of years of constant conflict. They have museums dedicated to battles. They write songs about wars that happened centuries ago. They study military tactics like we study art. War is woven into their culture in a way I had never seen before. He pulled out a small data pad and showed her an image. This is from human history. It's called the Battle of Thermopylae. 300 human soldiers held a narrow pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. They fought for 3 days. All 300 died. Do you know what humans do with that story? They celebrate it. They make movies about it. They teach it to their children as an example of courage. Velshara stared at the image. That's insane. That's what I thought. But it's completely normal to them. They have hundreds of stories like that. Last stands, desperate defenses, impossible victories. It's how they see themselves. They're proud of it. Kreshtal put away the data pad. We also learned about their psychological warfare. The sounds they make in combat, those aren't random. They're war cries. Battle shouts. Humans have been doing that for thousands of years. It serves multiple purposes. It frightens enemies. It encourages their own soldiers. It helps them push through fear and pain. I heard recordings from various battles. Humans shouting in different languages, but the intent was always the same. Defiance. Challenge. They were telling us they wouldn't break, and they meant it. There was one recording that command played for all officers. It was from a surrounded human outpost. They had no chance. We sent a surrender demand. The human commander responded with 2 words in their language. Our translators had trouble with it because it was apparently quite vulgar. But the meaning was clear. They were refusing, insultingly. Kreshtal smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. They held that outpost for 8 days. When we finally overran it, we found messages written on the walls, jokes, insults directed at us. One wall had a countdown of how many of us they had killed. They turned their last stand into a competition among themselves. Who could take out the most enemies before the end? That's when we started understanding the psychological aspect. Humans don't just accept death. They mock it. They make jokes about it. It's their way of dealing with fear. And it makes them incredibly dangerous because they won't panic. They won't break. Even when they should. Velshara felt overwhelmed by the information.
How did anyone fight them?
Carefully, expensively. We learned to hit them from long range when possible. We learned not to corner them because they were most dangerous when desperate. We learned to count every victory in the cost of our own casualties because humans would make us pay for every meter. But the worst was yet to come, Kreshtal said, because we hadn't encountered their elite forces yet. We hadn't seen what trained, experienced human soldiers could do when they were angry, when they stopped following the rules of civilized warfare and went back to their old ways. We were about to learn about something humans call going berserk, and we were going to learn it during the Hunting Moon campaign. His hand was shaking slightly now. That's when we became the prey. The bar had grown cold, or perhaps it was just Kreshtal's story. Velshara pulled her jacket tighter as the old commander ordered another drink. He was drinking more now, but his words remained clear. Maybe the alcohol helped him tell these memories. Hunting Moon, he said. That's what the humans called the planet. I don't know why. It had a designation in our system, but human soldiers always use their own names for places. Hunting Moon was covered in jungle, thick vegetation, constant rain, dangerous local wildlife. Command thought it was perfect for an ambush campaign against human supply lines. My battalion was assigned to harass human convoys moving through the jungle, hit-and-run tactics. We knew the terrain. We had superior tracking equipment. It should have been simple. He drank deeply. We destroyed our first convoy easily, waited until they were deep in the jungle, hit them from 3 sides, disappeared before they could organize a response. By the book. Textbook ambush. The second convoy was harder. They had scouts out, better security. We still managed to disable several vehicles before withdrawing. We lost 3 soldiers that time, but we considered it acceptable. After the third attack, we noticed something. The human patrols were changing. They weren't following standard patterns anymore. They were spreading out, checking places we had used before. They were learning fast. Velshara's recorder was still running. She hadn't interrupted in minutes, just letting Kreshtal tell the story. After the 4th convoy, we pulled back to our base camp. It was well hidden, 30 kilometers from the main human route. We set up sensors, traps, the standard precautions. We thought we were safe. We thought we had time to rest. That night, our perimeter alarm went off. Humans had found us somehow. We grabbed our weapons, took defensive positions, but there was no attack. Just sounds in the jungle. Movement, we could hear them out there, but we couldn't see them. My second Veltoth said we should move immediately. He said it felt wrong. I overruled him. We had good defenses. Moving at night through the jungle would be more dangerous. We would wait for dawn. Kreshtal's voice became quieter. That was my first mistake. I was thinking like a Torquin. I was thinking they would wait for better conditions to attack. But humans don't think that way. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They make the conditions work for them. At dawn, we started packing up anyway. Better to move than wait. But when the scouts went out, they reported that humans were on all sides. Not close, but tracking us, following our movements. We tried to break through their line. They fell back. We moved north, they followed. We went east, they were there too. That's when I understood. They weren't trying to catch us. They were hurting us, pushing us away from our supply caches, away from reinforcements, deeper into the jungle. He gestured to the bartender for water this time. His voice was getting rough. We tried everything. We set ambushes. They went around them. We split into smaller groups. They tracked every group. We moved at night. They followed in the dark. For 3 days they stayed on us. Never attacking, just following. Always there. My soldiers started to panic. Not from battle, from being chased. Most Covenant species have instincts about being hunted, prey animal instincts. Being pursued for days triggered something deep in us. Some of my soldiers wanted to surrender. Others wanted to make a stand, fight it out. But we couldn't find the humans to fight. They were always just out of sight. On the 4th day, Veltoth found tracks. Human boot prints, maybe 8 hours old. The tracks showed they had walked right through our camp the night before. While we were sleeping, they could have attacked, could have killed us all, but they didn't. They just watched us. Let us know they had been there. Belshara felt a chill. Why would they do that? Psychological warfare. They wanted us scared, wanted us to know we weren't safe even when we thought we were. And it worked. My soldiers stopped sleeping properly. They jumped at every sound. We were exhausted, dehydrated, running low on supplies. On the 6th day, we lost our first soldier. He just collapsed. The medic said it was stress and exhaustion. His heart gave out. We buried him quickly and moved on. But it affected everyone. We hadn't been in a real fight, but we had lost someone. On the 8th day, we tried to ambush them. We set up in a perfect position, waited for them to walk into our trap. They never came. Instead, we found one of their soldiers sitting on a rock, 500 meters from our position. Just sitting there, watching us with binoculars. When we moved toward him, he got up and walked away. Slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Kreshtal's hands were shaking now. That was when I started to understand what Veltoth had been trying to tell me. This wasn't a military operation anymore. It was a hunt. We were being hunted, and humans were very, very good at it. We tried to call for extraction, but the humans were jamming our communications. We tried to reach a clearing for air pickup, but every time we got close, human soldiers would appear and drive us back. Not in big fights, just small skirmishes. Just enough to keep us moving. On the 10th day, Veltoth asked me how long I thought humans could keep this up. I said maybe another few days. They had to be as tired as we were. They had to need rest and supplies. He just looked at me and said I still didn't understand. He showed me something he had found. A human camp abandoned. They had moved through it quickly, maybe stopped for a few hours. There were ration wrappers, water containers. He made me look at the rations. Each one was designed to provide maximum calories and nutrition in the smallest package. Humans had designed food specifically for long operations, and the water containers were collapsible, easy to carry. Then he showed me the footprints. The depth and spacing showed they had been moving fast, but not sprinting. A sustainable pace. He calculated that the human team had covered over 80 kilometers in 3 days while tracking us. 80 kilometers through jungle terrain. I asked him if that was possible. He said for us, no. For humans, apparently, yes. They had evolved for this. For running long distances. For pursuing prey until it dropped. Their bodies were built for endurance in ways ours weren't. On the 12th day, we lost 2 more soldiers. One broke his leg fleeing from a human patrol. We had to leave him behind. The other simply stopped walking. The medic said his mind had broken. Too much stress, too much fear, too little sleep. We carried him for a while, but eventually we had to leave him too. What else could we do? By the 15th day, we had lost 11 soldiers without a real battle. The humans were breaking us just by being there, just by following. We could see them sometimes, shadows in the jungle, hear their voices calling to each other. But whenever we tried to engage, they faded back. They were everywhere and nowhere. On the 18th day, we found bodies, our soldiers who we had left behind. They were arranged in a clearing. The humans had treated their wounds, bandaged, given them water and food, then left them for us to find, alive. There was a message with them written in our language. It said we could surrender any time. This didn't have to continue. That's when I realized what they were doing. This whole thing was to give us a choice. Keep running until we all died or went mad, or surrender with dignity. They were being cruel and kind at the same time. It was more than I could understand. On the 20th day, I surrendered my remaining soldiers. We walked into a human camp with our weapons down. They gave us water first, then food, then medical care. They treated us better than we had treated their prisoners. The human commander told me his team had been tracking us for 23 days. 23 days of moving through hostile jungle, carrying full equipment, sleeping in shifts, eating field rations. And they could have kept going. He said they had trained for 40-day operations. This had barely challenged them. That's when I truly understood what persistence predator meant. Not just that they could keep going, but that they would. They would chase us to the edge of the world if that's what it took, and there was nothing we could do to stop them. Kreshtal finished his water. After hunting Moon, I thought I had seen the worst of human warfare. But I was wrong again, because we still hadn't seen what happened when you threatened something humans cared about. We hadn't seen them when they stopped thinking and just reacted. That came later. That came at Firebase Olympus. Kreshtal was drunk now, not falling over drunk, but enough that his words came slower, more carefully pronounced. Velshara thought about stopping the interview. But the old commander waved away her concern. No, you wanted the truth, here it is. All of it. He stared at his glass for a long moment before continuing. Firebase Olympus. That was the name humans gave to the outpost we captured. It was a small facility, maybe 40 humans stationed there. Intelligence said it was a communications relay. Command wanted it intact, so they sent overwhelming force. 3 battalions, over 700 soldiers against 40. The battle lasted 2 hours. The humans fought hard, but numbers matter. We took the base. 23 humans were captured alive. The rest died fighting. Standard military operation. By the book, Command was pleased. We had a strategic position and prisoners to negotiate with. That's how warfare is supposed to work. You gain leverage. You trade. Everyone minimizes casualties, civilized. Kreshtal laughed bitterly. We didn't understand humans at all. The first hint was when we tried to contact Human Command to begin negotiations. They responded immediately. Their message was simple. Release the prisoners unharmed or face consequences. No discussion. No negotiation. Just a demand. Command thought it was posturing. Normal pre-negotiation positioning. We sent back our terms. Prisoner exchange. Territory concessions. Standard things. The humans sent back the same message. Release the prisoners. Nothing else. After the third exchange, our commander realized something was wrong. The humans weren't negotiating. They were warning us. He ordered increased security around the base. Doubled the guards. Activated all defensive systems. He was nervous but not worried. We had the prisoners in the most secure part of the base. We had 700 soldiers. We had orbital sensors watching for any approach. The humans gave us 48 hours. Then they came. He paused, drinking again. His hands were steadier now, but his eyes were distant. They didn't come with negotiations. They didn't come with a small strike team. They came with everything. 2 full human battalions. Over 1,000 soldiers. Plus air support, artillery, combat engineers, everything. Command couldn't believe it. The base wasn't worth that much strategically. The prisoners were low-rank soldiers. The human response was completely disproportionate. It made no sense from a military perspective, but it made perfect sense from a human perspective. Those weren't just soldiers to them. Those were their people, their squad mates, their friends, maybe family. And humans don't negotiate when family is involved. They just act. Velshara was writing frantically now, trying to keep up. What happened when they attacked? They didn't just attack. They destroyed us, systematically, completely. The first wave was artillery. They had mapped every defensive position, every gun emplacement, every sensor. The shelling was precise, surgical. Within 20 minutes, our outer defenses were gone. Then came the airstrikes. Human fighters came in low under our anti-air systems. They hit the command center, the communications array, the vehicle depot, everything we needed to coordinate a defense. Gone in minutes. My commander ordered a retreat to interior positions. We still had 700 soldiers. We could hold the interior. We had the prisoners. Surely they wouldn't risk the prisoners. Kreshetal's voice dropped lower. We were wrong. The humans breached the outer walls with explosives. Massive charges that created holes 10 meters wide. Then their soldiers came through. Not carefully. Not tactically. They came in like a wave. Like they didn't care about casualties. I was in the second defensive line. I watched them come through the first line. We killed dozens, maybe 50. They kept coming. The ones in front fell, the ones behind stepped over them. Some were injured but kept moving. One human soldier had his arm blown off below the elbow. He picked up a weapon with his other hand and kept advancing until someone finished him. It wasn't tactics. It wasn't strategy. It was rage. Pure focused rage. They weren't there to capture the base. They were there to get their people back. And we were in the way. He rubbed his face with both hands. The second defensive line lasted 15 minutes. Then they were inside. That's when the real horror started. Close quarters combat. Humans are terrifying up close. They don't just shoot you. They use knives, fists, anything. One of them ran out of ammunition and beat a Kreth warrior to death with the empty weapon. I saw a human female, small by their standards, fight 3 Torquin soldiers in a corridor. She killed 2 with her sidearm and the third with a combat knife. She was injured, bleeding from multiple wounds. But she kept moving, kept fighting, heading deeper into the base. That's when I understood. They all were. Every human soldier was pushing toward the center. toward where we kept the prisoners. They weren't trying to take the base. They were trying to reach their people. Everything else was secondary. My commander made a decision then, a stupid, desperate decision. He ordered the prisoners brought to the command center. He was going to threaten them, use them as shields, force the humans to stop. Kreshtal's voice became very quiet. It was the worst decision of his life. And the humans somehow knew. Maybe they had infiltrated our communications. Maybe they just guessed. But they increased their assault. More explosives. More aggression. They started using grenades in enclosed spaces. Dangerous for everyone, including them. They didn't care. A team of 6 humans reached the command center. I don't know how. They fought through 3 defensive positions. When they arrived, 4 were injured. 1 was bleeding badly from a head wound. But all 6 were functional. All 6 were armed. And all 6 were absolutely focused on one thing. My commander had a weapon to the head of one of the human prisoners. He shouted for them to stop. Threatened to kill the prisoner. The lead human, a woman with captain's insignia, looked at him. I was there. I saw her face. There was no fear. No hesitation. Just cold calculation. She shot him. Center mass. Didn't say a word. Just shot him. Then her team shot every soldier near the prisoners. It was over in seconds. We couldn't react fast enough. The humans moved like they had practiced this exact scenario hundreds of times. The captain checked each prisoner, called out names, made sure they were alive and okay. Only then did she check her own wounded. Only then did she report mission success. That's when the main human force reached the command center. They had fought through all our defenses in under 2 hours. They had lost maybe 200 soldiers. We had lost over 400, and they had their people back. But here's what I remember most. After they secured the prisoners, after they called for medical evacuation, a human medic started treating wounded Covenant soldiers. Our soldiers, the enemy. He was treating us while his friends were bleeding a few meters away. I asked him why. He said the wounded can't fight. They're just people who need help. That's what medics do. Same thing Chen had told me months before at Station 7. Like it was obvious. Like it was the only way to think. Kreshtal finished his drink. The prisoners were evacuated. The human force withdrew. They didn't hold the base, didn't occupy it. They got their people and left. That was all they wanted. 3 days later, I was reassigned. Command realized something that day. We couldn't win against humans with conventional warfare. We couldn't threaten them with prisoners. We couldn't break their will. Every tactic we tried, they countered with more determination. Some in command thought we should escalate. Target human civilians. Hit their colonies, break their spirit by making the cost too high. I remember arguing against it in the strategy meetings. I told them what I had seen, how humans responded to threats, how they bonded, how they protected their own. I told them that threatening human civilians wouldn't make them surrender. It would make them fight harder. It would unite them in ways we couldn't understand. I told them we needed to find a political solution, a way to end the war with honor on both sides. But some didn't listen. They thought I was being weak, afraid. Maybe I was, but I was also right. He looked at Velshara with all 4 eyes. When they started targeting human civilian populations, it didn't break the humans. It transformed them. It made the war total. And that's when we lost. Not because they beat us in battle, but because we realized they would never stop. Never surrender. They would fight until every last human was dead. And there were billions of them. That's when the Covenant finally understood what I had been saying. You can't defeat humans with force. You can only coexist with them, or make them your enemy, and accept that you might not survive the choice. The bar was nearly empty now. Just Velshara, Kreshtal, and the old Vrex bartender who had stopped pretending not to listen. He sat at the end of the bar, cleaning the same glass over and over. His ears pointed toward their conversation. Kreshtal looked more tired than drunk now. The alcohol had worn into exhaustion. But he wasn't done. You want to know why the war ended? Not the official reason. The real reason. Velshara nodded. Her recording device was still running, though she had filled 3 notebooks with handwritten observations. 6 months after Firebase Olympus, Command made its biggest mistake. They authorized strikes on human civilian colonies. 3 worlds. Mining colonies, farming communities, research stations. Targets chosen specifically because they had minimal military value but high population density. The goal was to terrify the human population, make them demand peace. I was in the command center when the reports came back. The strikes had been successful. Thousands of human civilians dead. Command expected human leadership to contact us immediately. Open negotiations. Beg for peace, the humans went silent. For 3 days, nothing. No communications. No counterattacks, nothing. Command thought maybe it had worked. Maybe we had broken them. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. We had done the opposite. We had united them. Completely. On the 4th day, human communication channels came alive. But they weren't negotiating. They were mobilizing. Every human colony, every station, every ship, everyone was being called up. The entire species was going to war. We intercepted their broadcasts. Human leaders weren't calling for revenge. They were calling for survival. They said the Covenant had proven they would target civilians. That meant no human was safe. That meant everyone had to fight. Not for conquest. Not for territory. For survival. Kreshtal's voice was steady now, telling the truth he had carried for 15 years. Within 2 weeks, the human military doubled in size. Within a month, it tripled. They weren't drafting soldiers. People were volunteering. Old humans who had retired from service were coming back. Civilians were training. Factory workers were making weapons. Scientists were developing new tactics. And they stopped following the rules of civilized warfare. They had tried that. They had been honorable. They had treated prisoners well. They had avoided civilian targets. And we had responded by killing their families. So they adapted. The next battle was at Kelvin Station, a Covenant supply depot. Important, but heavily defended. Intelligence said humans would need months to plan an assault. They attacked in 2 weeks. With overwhelming force. They didn't try to capture it. They destroyed it. Completely, every building, every ship, every storage facility. Then they moved to the next target. This wasn't the careful, determined human military we had been fighting. This was something older, something primal. They weren't trying to win battles. They were trying to eliminate threats. And they were good at it. I was assigned to defensive planning. My job was to predict human strategies. I couldn't. Everything I knew about human military doctrine didn't apply anymore. They were taking risks I couldn't calculate, accepting casualties that made no sense, pushing their soldiers beyond what should be possible. After 2 months of this new war, we had lost more territory than in the previous year. Not because humans were better soldiers, but because they wouldn't stop. Every defeat just made them fight harder. Every loss made them more determined. The Battle of Torgus Prime was the turning point. A major Covenant fleet position, 50 warships, orbital defenses. Everything we had. Intelligence said it would take the humans 6 months to gather enough forces to threaten it. They came in 4 weeks. They didn't have enough ships to win. Any reasonable analysis said they would lose. But they attacked anyway. The battle lasted 18 hours. We destroyed 30% of their fleet. They destroyed 70% of ours. By any measure, we had won. We held the position. But Command looked at the numbers and understood what I had been saying for months. We won, but we lost 2 ships for every one they lost. And they had more ships. More people. More resources. They could afford those losses. We couldn't. And the humans weren't stopping. Already they were building more ships. Training more soldiers. They had mobilized their entire industrial base for war. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource extraction facility was dedicated to the war effort. One of our economists did the calculations. At the current rate, humans could sustain this level of warfare for 10 years. Maybe 20. We could sustain it for 2. Maybe 3. And that was assuming we didn't lose any major colonies or production centers. But it was worse than that. We were fighting on their terms now. Quick, brutal engagements with high casualties. The kind of warfare we weren't built for. Our soldiers were breaking under the pressure. Desertion was increasing. Morale was collapsing. Meanwhile, human morale was stronger than ever. They were angry, united. They had a clear enemy and a clear purpose. Every civilian death we had caused was another reason for them to fight. We had given them something more powerful than military advantage. We had given them motivation. 8 months after we attacked those civilian colonies, Command finally accepted reality. We couldn't win. Not militarily. The only way to defeat humans was to kill every single one of them, and they would make us pay such a price for that. We would destroy ourselves in the process. The peace talks began. Not because we wanted peace, because we had no other choice. We had started a fight we couldn't finish. Kreshtal was quiet for a moment. The bartender brought him water without being asked. He drank it slowly. You asked me why I agreed to this interview. Why talk about this after all these years? I'll tell you. The young people today, they see humans as neighbors, friends, trading partners. They don't understand what humans are capable of, what they can become if they're threatened. And that's dangerous. Not because humans are evil. They're not. They're kind, generous, creative. I've worked with humans since the war. Good people. But they're also capable of incredible violence when something they love is threatened, and there are billions of them. I want the young people to understand. Don't start a fight with humans. Don't back them into a corner. Don't threaten their families, because they won't surrender. They won't negotiate. They'll fight with everything they have, and they have a lot. Some species are strong, some are fast, some are smart. Humans aren't the best at any one thing, but they're good enough at everything, and they absolutely refuse to give up. That combination makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He looked directly at Velshara, but it also makes them the best allies, because that determination, that refusal to give up, that applies to their friends too. Humans don't abandon their allies. They don't leave people behind. We learned that the hard way. That medic, Chen, the one who tried to help our wounded even as a prisoner, I looked her up after the war. She's a doctor now, on a colony world. She treats everyone who comes to her. Covenant species, humans, anyone. I sent her a message once, thanked her for saving that soldier. Asked her why she did it. She said she barely remembered it. It was just what you do. You see someone hurt, you help. That's what doctors are for. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's what humans are. Terrifying warriors who will fight to the death. And kind healers who help their enemies. Both at the same time. It's not logical. It's not rational. But it's them. The door to the bar opened. A human walked in. Male, maybe 40 years old, with graying hair and the bearing of a soldier. He wore civilian clothes but moved with military precision. His eyes scanned the room automatically, checking exits and threats. Old habits, he saw Kreshtal and stopped. For a moment the two stared at each other across the bar. Then the human nodded slightly. Respect, recognition. Kreshtal nodded back. The human ordered a drink and sat at the other end of the bar. Not close, but not avoiding either. Just two old soldiers in the same space. Kreshtal turned back to Velshara. That's why the war ended. Not because we beat them, not because they beat us. Because we finally understood each other. We learned what they would do to protect their own. They learned that we could be reasonable when not threatened. The peace treaty wasn't about winners and losers. It was about survival. Both sides choosing to live instead of fighting to extinction. That's the only way war with humans can end. Either you coexist with them, or you fight until one side is gone. And if you make it a fight to extinction, they'll win. Because they'll keep going long after any reasonable species would quit. That's what persistence predator means. They'll chase you to the end of the universe if that's what it takes. He stood up slowly, steadying himself on the table. That's my story. That's the truth about the war. Use it however you want. Just make sure people understand. Humans are our friends now. Let's keep it that way. Velshara stood as well, turning off her recorder. Thank you, Commander. This will help people understand. I hope so. He pulled out credits for his tab and extra for the bartender. Then he looked at the human sitting at the bar. Some of us understand already. As Kreshtal walked to the door, he paused next to the human veteran. They didn't speak. The human just raised his glass slightly. Kreshtal returned the gesture. Then he left.